Again, we're excited for the weekend. SEC baseball this time of year. I'll say two of the top 5 teams in the country going at it in Founders Park this weekend. We're a little banged up right now, so we're going to have to work through some things to still try to win ball games. But it's a next man up mentality, and we'll do the absolute best we can to prepare and to compete, and see what happens.
Mark, with that, I know it's only been a few hours, but is there an update on LaCroix? And if he can't go, would it still be Braz at third and probably Tippett at second?
Most likely. There's still other options we can look at. Petrie came in as a third baseman, so there are other options. Cole Messina has played infield in the past, and he's able to do that. So we have options. So we don't know for sure which direction we'll go, but it may be a situation where we just say, let's play the best pitching and defense we can, and then get the offense out of our big boppers and kind of go from there and use the defenders that may be in the game as a way to just play small ball and get bunts down and do all those things. So it's just a matter of with some of our best hitters being out of the lineup, we may have to reinvent ourselves a little bit with how we score runs and maybe leaning more towards athletic defense as much as we can to try to win games. It's too early. I saw him this morning. He was in the training room already trying to work on it, and he said he felt a little better than he thought he would. But what that means for this weekend, it's still too early.
With a guy like Sprode, who you obviously saw twice last year in the Hoover game, how much does it help to have seen a guy before, or does it not help that much when you've got so many new hitters who maybe weren't here last year for him?
Yeah, we're a completely different offense than we were last year when we faced him. So I think it'll be good, that we have seen him and some of our guys have faced him. But for the most part, we'll do our scouting reports based on how he's pitching this year, who we have in our lineup this year. So I don't think last year will have a whole lot of bearing on how this year goes.
Hi, I'm Beth Wool. I'm from Greenville. Nice to meet you for the first time.
Nice to meet you as well.
And talking with people in the upstate, and even in my newsroom alone, everybody's raving about these home runs, and it's getting people really excited. But you mentioned maybe that transition to needing to play some small ball. How equipped is this team to make those adjustments? And people get caught up in those numbers and in those stats. I'm interested in what stands out to you, what you see when you're looking at your team and breaking down those numbers and what makes up this roster this year.
Well, that's a really good question. That's a deep question, so I'll try to do the best I can. The thing is, I look at our numbers that stands out the most, of course. We lead the country in home runs, so that's the first thing that stands out. As of last night, we lead the SEC in ERA. When you combine those two things, you have a chance to win games. And so that's the starting point for me. I think overall, when I look at our team and what we will do with some of our better hitters out of the lineup, are we equipped to play a little bit different style at the bottom of our lineup? It's not going to affect how Petrie hits and Wimmer hits and Cassis hits, and Brewer's been a great addition for us, and Messina, and on and on. So it won't affect that part of the order, but the bottom of the order, not having the length maybe in terms of the power guys, it may affect how we play the game. If Tippett's in there, you're going to see some more bunting and running and stealing and those kinds of things. If Stone is in there, same thing. So I think, sometimes you have a full lineup of 9 guys, but sometimes you might have almost 2 segments of a lineup where the top of the lineup is going to bang it around and the bottom of the lineup might be more manufacturing runs. And based on who we have in there, that may be how we have to approach it. So again, you have to be creative at times, and with the injuries we have right now, we might have to be a little bit creative, but it doesn't mean we can't win ball games.
Mark, I'll ask the rotation question, but is the plan still Sanders, Mahoney, TBA at this point?
Most likely.
And
nice try.
And Becker obviously started Game 3 for you guys up at Vanderbilt last week. And what did you see from him in, I guess, his first weekend start of the year and how he might have pitched against that lineup?
Yeah, I was very happy with how he performed. I think he's getting a little bit better every time he goes out there. I think his poise is getting better every time he goes out there. And so he's a guy that we have a lot of confidence in. And I think he's only going to get better the longer he's here, the more he gets his work in. I think he's a guy that you can win with. So hopefully, if he gets the ball this weekend, he will get the ball at some point this weekend. When he does, I think he helps us win.
Mark, I know it's kind of just a product of what the SEC is, but you guys are going on, 3 straight weeks against playing a top 5 team. I mean, just what's kind of this last, 2+ weeks been like for you guys as a team? And I guess what's kind of it like to be at least maybe on the tail end of that now as
Well,
well?
I mean, you have to love it. We talk about it all the time. You have to love it. It's what the SEC is. It's coaches, players. It's what we sign up for. We want to be with the best and compete against the best. So you just have to love it. You have to love the fact that you get to play another top 5 team, because you know it's going to be on national TV. You know when you do well, it's going to get a lot of attention. So you just have to look at the opportunities of it. You have to look at the benefits of it. It helps in recruiting when you're a top 5 team and you're playing another top 5. All those things are positive. So that's how we will approach this. It's another great opportunity, another great challenge.
2 years ago, y'all had the most strikeouts in the SEC. Last year, there was a concerted effort to really cut that down and had the fewest strikeouts in the SEC. Now you're kind of back at the top, but also at the top at walks, hit by pitches. Things are going well offensively. Obviously, what was the evolution like from last year to this year in terms of approach? Was it just what Monty brought with him, or was it more, this is the kind of hitter that we have, this is how we need to work deeper into counts, or how does that evolution go?
I think it's a little bit of both, John. I think you always are required to make sure you know the best way to score runs with who you have. And so obviously the guys we've added this year, there have been some power guys, the Cassises, the Petries, the McGillises, those kind of guys. They're power guys. And so what's the best way to get production out of power guys? It's to work counts. It's to not just chase everything to avoid striking out. And so with that, with power comes walks. And when you're deep in counts, you get some more strikeouts. At the end of the day, strikeouts don't matter if you're scoring 9-10 runs a game. That's the most important thing. Strikeouts are a part of the story, but if you're scoring runs, at the end of the day, that's what matters. And so Monty has brought in an approach, that favors power, and it just so happens that we have a power-laden team in terms of the players we have, and so all that kind of works together. At the end of the day, whether we strike out little or we strike out a lot, the runs are the only thing they put on the scoreboard that really matter. And so we're scoring a lot of runs this year, and so that's just, that's something we're happy with. And so the strikeouts, we didn't score a lot last year and we didn't strike out a last year. So there's not always a correlation between low strikeouts and low runs. You have to score runs. And with this team, it's been very successful.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, good to see you again.
All right, good to see you again. Hey, you just mentioned some of the benefits of playing these highly ranked opponents. The television, more attention, but also you have these Thursday starts, Friday starts. What are the drawbacks of playing all these Thursday games, especially when it comes to setting up your pitching?
Yeah, it's not ideal, and I think most coaches will tell you the same story, that having this many short weeks is not ideal for your student athletes. But we also know why they do it. It's good for the league. It's good for the content on the SEC network. We know all the reasons around it. But that being said, it is challenging for these student athletes to always be playing on these short weeks. Our schedules are set up to play basically Tuesday and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I think this is maybe our 4th or 5th time already this year where we're having the short week. And so that adds up. There is a cumulative effect to what that does to the health of your team or the fatigue of your team. So it's just a challenge that you have to deal with. And so what we try to do from our standpoint is make sure that our practices are pretty short, pretty crisp, get them in, get them out, and because we want to be fresh for game day. Because if you're not careful, if you're doing too much on the non-game days, then you're not going to be at 100% for game days. And so it's just, again, it's a part of trying to manage everything in terms of how fresh your players will be, but also getting the work necessary. So it's a challenge, but it's where we are, and we know the benefits of why they have these short weeks or why teams play on Thursdays. So we just have to make the best of it.
Mark, at least the weather for Saturday is a 65% chance of rain, I believe. Is there a time that you have to get the game started by, or what's Florida's curfew time for that one?
That's a good question. We haven't started those conversations yet. We will do that, obviously, in the next 24 hours. I believe, I'm guessing, but I'm assuming that they're driving over, so that makes it a lot easier to make changes to a schedule if they don't have commercial flights, and I would assume that they're driving over.
Also, they're a man down with Brandon Neely serving the rest of his suspension. I'm sure you might have seen it, and I know they called it by the rule, but at least word around the campfire was maybe that was a little over anxious by the ump. How do you tell your kids about, look, they may call you for something just like a fist pump, and then you got to sit a 4-game knock. So how do you tell them not to do it in a kind of an emotional moment?
Yeah, we just what we tell our guys is to play with emotion. Emotion's a big part of the game. Try not to do anything that'll cross the line, and just kind of go from there. Emotion's a big part of college baseball for every team, and so you just hope that it doesn't put you in any situations where umpires get offended.
We've talked a lot about Dylan Brewer and the stretch he's having, but he's hitting the leadoff spot the last 2 games and done well from a limited sample size. What have you seen from him in that leadoff spot, and what about his skill set kind of lends himself to hitting at the top of the order?
Well, he's got a really good on-base percentage now, and looking at the stats now, he is up to .436, which is slightly better than the team average. He's left-handed, which is always nice to have at the top. He has occasional power. He's got 6 home runs now. He can steal a base. He brings a lot of athleticism to that spot, and I'm really pleased with the progress he's made over the course of this season. He's gotten better. He started as a starter, then he was on the bench for a while, didn't pout, just went to work, and now he's a very key guy to our offense. So happy with him, happy to what he brings there, because again, he gets on base, he works counts, he has that power. Last night, the home run he hit last night was key for us, very key. But he can also get on base, work a walk, and steal a base. So he brings a lot of things you like there.
I heard that Watch Fox asked you yesterday about Meredith, and I know it's getting a lot of attention right now. And as a woman in sports, I'm less interested in beating the, oh my gosh, yay, there's a woman in sports side. And it's growing in baseball, especially. It's kind of, right there with football and growing in those next ranks. I guess I'm more interested in looking at the role of a bullpen catcher, because I think when you talk to the casual fan, they don't realize that that's its own position and its own person in the team makeup. So I'm interested in from you what the value of that position is and why it's important to have the right kind of person there, no matter who they are.
Wow, another great question. You said the role of that position, right? Not the rule of that position. The role of that position is very important for us. Number one, you want it to be somebody that is trustworthy. You want it to be somebody that is talented enough to handle our type of pitching staff, which is extremely talented. You want it to be somebody that's mature, because Coach Parker is going to ask her, hey, what'd you think about this guy or that guy, or how's his curveball today, or did he have control? So you want it to be somebody that you respect their opinion. And Meredith is all of those things. And her role for us is important, because every pitcher that she's down there, every pitch she catches down there for us is one less that a Cole Messina has to catch, which keeps him fresher for the games. So that's a really important role for a team. There's big league catchers, that's their full-time job in the major leagues, is they're a bullpen catcher. And for us, it's just as important it is for them. So we're happy to have her. She does a really nice job, and irregardless of her gender, she does a great job. And so we're happy to have Meredith.
Mark, might be a little bit of a wait-and-see game, but with some rain in the forecast on Saturday, is any discussion about moving to a game up or anything like that?
Not yet. Yeah, we'll continue to evaluate that and look at it, because again, we want to try to get 3 games in. But yeah, we'll that's, again, we talked about this. Seems like we talk about this every week. But we'll continue to talk to coaches, weathermen, all those people. We'll just talk to everybody involved that may help us make a good decision.
With a guy like Gavin, he scuffled a bit over the weekend. He came back and hit the homer last night. Do you even have to say anything to a guy like that when he kind of goes through a rough patch, or is it just kind of a self-fixed thing after a weekend like he had at Vanderbilt?
Well, I mean, you coach your players. You make suggestions, and you get in the cages and work with them, and you do all those things. But at the end of the day, the player's the one that steps in the box and has to finally decide what adjustment will I make, or do I just stay status quo and keep working? And with him, I think it's just a matter of, he started the season a little bit slow, then he got hot, then he went into a little bit of a rut, and now hopefully he's starting to get hot again. So sometimes hitters are just like that.
Coach, you got the 2 top home run hitting teams in the conference here in Florida and South Carolina, and it feels like homers are up everywhere right now. What are you seeing from what they do, what you do, and then your thoughts on, is there something going on right now, either balls, bats, or otherwise, that you feel like is impacting the game in that way?
I mean, number one, they have some star power in their offense. You look at their hitters; they have some star power. Rivera, Langford, Caglione, and they have more guys past them, but those guys are like all-American, high draft pick guys. Those are stars. So you start there with them. Why are the home runs up nationwide? It's hard to have any one. I've heard a lot of theories. Some of it has to do with the pitching, and Mark Etheridge from D1 Baseball wrote an interesting article, and he talked about the challenge for the pitchers these days is they're having to work faster than they ever had. The strike zone is probably smaller than it's ever been because of TrackMan. And so there's a lot of reasons why maybe the home runs are up. You know, we talk about it every year. Guys get stronger every year, and they learn how to train better every year that passes. There's theories about the ball. You know, is the ball more tightly wound? You hear those rumors in the major leagues all the time, whether it is getting to college baseball. I don't know, but I don't have a concrete answer for you why they're up. I know they're up for us because we have these type of players now. You know, we some of our guys have developed. We've brought in some better players, and in terms of, you know, that type of production, you add an Ethan Petrie, and our home runs are way up because of the personnel and because you know, because Monty's doing a nice job of developing these guys on a daily basis too. So, yeah, why they're up so much nationally, it's hard for me to say.
You mentioned Caglione there, two-way guy for Florida. What kind of challenges does he present outside of the obvious power that he's shown?
Well, he's the Shohei Ohtani of college baseball. You know, he's their Sunday starter throwing 98 miles an hour, but he has 22 home runs. So it's an elite talent. He's from Tampa, you know, an area I'm very familiar with. He's an elite talent, so you better make sure you do a good job of trying to minimize his effect on a ball game because he's one of the best in the country.
You started to touch on what I wanted to ask about. It does seem like strike zones have gotten a little bit tighter this year. Do you have a theory for that? Is it the TrackMan data that's become more prevalent, or was that a point of emphasis in the off season for?
No, John. I think I would attribute a great majority of it to TrackMan, and because umpires now get a report card basically on how they did, and every pitch is graded as correct or incorrect, and they get percentages after a game, and it's literally like a report card. You were 90% accurate turning strikes into balls or balls into strikes, and so because of that, the TrackMan strike zone is it's the plate, you know. And for a long time in college baseball, sometimes you'd see this much off the plate called a strike, and sometimes when you went to certain parks in certain towns, it would be that much, you know. And they talk about home cooking used to be something people talked about for a long time. You just don't see that anymore because umpires now get evaluated. They get report cards, and those go to the national outlets in terms of who's going to get postseason assignments and who gets to work in Omaha. So because of that, the strike zone is very close to the same in Founders Park as Alex Box Stadium, as anywhere you go now. We've had a couple games that we've played this year where you could tell it wasn't a TrackMan type game, and I thought the strike zone was significantly bigger because of it. So I would attribute that as much as anything.
Good or bad having a tight zone?
Depends on whether you like pitching or defense or offense. You know, that's up to you. That's up to the observer. The trifecta.
We'll see if I can. We were talking about making that adjustment to the small ball, and I just can't help but think, you know, long term down the line here as you head into the postseason, about how valuable that can be, because you've mentioned it a couple of times here. Hitting can be streaky, and guys can go on their ups and downs. You're forced into it with some injuries, you said, but how valuable is it to start kind of flexing that muscle, not only for your team's confidence, but also to keep those teams honest as well, those opponents?
You need to be a complete offense. You know, you talk about it in every sport. You want to be a balanced offense. You want to have multiple ways to score. Football, you want to have a good running game, but also be able to, you know, throw the ball over the top. Basketball, you want to be able to get the ball inside, do a great center, but you also want to be able to shoot three-pointers. In our sport, it's power, but it's also can you manufacture a run with a walk, a bunt, a move them over, and then a sac fly. All those things are important. So for us, we want to be a balanced team because sometimes you may get in the postseason, if we're fortunate enough to be there, where you're not going to hit homers. Maybe the wind's blowing in. Maybe you have a guy that's a heavy sinker baller and you just can't lift the ball. So you have to be able to score in a multitude of ways. And so being forced to do that for a little while, you know, I'm hoping it's good for us. Thanks, Mark. Okay. Thanks, everybody.